Hello and welcome to In the Weeds. We're recording live from the Pickeyweedz Esoteric Occult Boutique, located just south of Clark Summit, Pennsylvania, in beautiful South Abington Township. Pickeyweedz is the largest and most diverse boutique of its kind in northeast Pennsylvania, with an increasingly wide variety of items for many traditions.
In addition to items for sale, Pickeyweedz hosts a wide variety of classes, events, and community-driven gatherings throughout the year. Pickeyweedz is located at 105 Layton Road, South Abington Township, PA. Open Wednesday through Sunday, 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. More information can be found at www.pickeyweedz.com. That's PICKEYWEEDZ.com, or on our social media channels on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. In the Weeds is the official podcast for Pickeyweedz, where we strive to bring the community together with topics of interest, guest speakers, and informative discussions to benefit the entire community.
If you'd like to be a guest speaker, either live or remote call-in, please visit www.pickeyweedz.com. Scroll down to the bottom of the page, find In the Weeds podcast guest application, click it, copy and paste the text into an email with your contact information, and send it to us at pickeyweedz@gmail.com.
Now let's get in the weeds. Hey guys, good morning, and welcome to episode 13. Triggered. She's triggered, John.
I get triggered all the time.
Me too, and especially in traffic. So I want to start this episode with a song I always go back to every time I find I'm triggered. And it annoys me, Tanya Tucker, that I think of you every freaking time I get triggered. And then your song runs through my head. It's called Strong Enough to Bend. And she says, like a tree out in the backyard that never has been broken by the wind. But the reason it's still standing is because it was strong enough to bend. And that's what we got to be. So we're going to talk about the things that trigger us and why we, of all people, especially being in this community and working magic and especially those of us who work in ceremonial and folk and bog witches like John.
I am a bog witch.
Need to not ever be triggered, because it's really hard to will things when you're coming from a point of being angry beyond control, triggered, and you're dealing with things coming through the veil that are going to stomp your ass. It's really that simple. If you're triggered, you have got to be in control. And the same is true out here in the world, that there is a population out here. And this, as Mark Stavish would say, is conspiracy fact, not conspiracy theory, that are pulling the strings. And they got their hand up your ass like you're a ventriloquist dummy. And they're moving your mouth. And they're doing that by triggering you through the media and triggering you through there's a left and there's a right.
Yeah, and the fact that, you can actually look it up, that there's one organization, one corporation that owns both sides or all sides of the argument. And their entertainment and their income is based upon
us, our
reaction to stimuli. Yeah. And we make that decision every time we're presented with stimuli. That could be what, someone's wearing, what they look like, or what their leanings are one way or the other. And, we're fighting each other for their own entertainment and benefit, and I know a lot of people know this, or they say they know this, but it's very true. You can look up who owns all of the major media outlets, it comes down to
who owns both the parties,
one or two major organizations. Mm-hmm. And we're just the people supplying them with income and all the power.
We're like those peons in WoW when you smack them upside the head and work. This is what we're here for, and that's how they see us.
And it's our reaction. So most of this stuff comes down to not what was said or whatever, and there may be some heinous shit, and our reaction to it is what makes the difference.
It does,
right? And they're banking. You remember way back, 2008, 2009, when we had the collapse, a lot of that was because you had, people betting on the failure. They were writing people loans that there's no way they should qualify for, but they weren't making their money on the loans. They were making their money on
the mortgage insurance,
and failing and losing whatever they had put up for collateral.
It was a credit default swap. That tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, so they were betting on our failure to, make good on our promise to pay because they're the ones that okayed us to get those loans to begin with. You know? It's some heinous shit, but even then we had a choice in what to do. You always have a choice, right? I had one of my first mentors, Miguel, if you're listening, gave me a really good example that's kind of stuck with me since. And he's like, imagine you and another person have a little yellow tennis ball, and we'll call that tennis ball our reaction, right? So you toss the ball to the other person. Now that other person has a chance to make a decision. Are they going to make an emotional decision based on how hard you throw the ball? Probably. So if you just toss the ball to them, here's my point of view, and they toss the ball back to you, well, here's my point of view. What happens when you take the ball and you fastball pitch it at 100 plus miles an hour?
At their head.
What would a reasonable person expect in return, right? Well, that ball's coming back at you as fast or faster, right? And so this is the crux of argument and the crux of, differing viewpoints and people that don't want to accept another's viewpoint or it offends them on an emotional level and they have an emotional response. They're going to whip that ball right back at you. And that's what's going on. So you have the puppet masters, for lack of a better term. Let's put this out into the public space, and now we can watch a bunch of fastball pitching between people of different points of view. Yes. And they're cashing in on both sides.
And they're looking at you as the peasantry.
Yeah.
And you're their toy and their plaything.
Like we've used that reference before back in like the Occupy Wall Street, and it was a very viable cause, right? You can get behind something like that, what their message was and what they wanted, but the reality of the situation is when you look up on the balcony and you see the 1% sipping champagne
and pointing
and laughing at you, like clearly we're missing something, right? We're arguing against each other. We're fighting against each other. We're making rash decisions on how we're going to react to stimuli. And it really comes down to that throw the ball. Are you going to toss the ball or are you going to whip it at somebody? And do you really expect them not to whip it back at you? It's like the pendulum of public opinion or the pendulum of political or whatever, right? We have a tendency to overcorrect, right?
Like me and my second marriage.
And we won't talk about Skippy.
We swing way too wide.
Bless his heart. He could be the national spokesperson for Kleenex.
Right? Oh, my God. So we had an instance of this happen in the store, and people always ask us, like, how can you talk across the spectrum to so many people and not get upset? How can you have really great conversations with these people knowing what they are? Because they're people.
Yeah.
And because generally they are triggered. They're triggered by something that they've been indoctrinated to, whether that be political or religious, or whether that just be, the country upbringing or the city upbringing where they don't understand the country folk and they're calling us hicks. It's indoctrination. And so you have to think to yourself, do I really care what they think of me? Because if you're asking, I don't. And you have to be strong enough in yourself and your beliefs in yourself and where you stand to not be triggered by what they're going to say to you. This guy walked in the store wearing a red hat, so you can kind of go from there and take what you will about his leanings, going, you want him back. You want him back in office because you're in business. You want him back. And I just leaned over the counter very politely and I said, sir, we don't talk about that kind of stuff in here. And he stopped for a second and he looked and he said, he leaned back in, as John said, he tossed the ball back and he said, why not? And I said, because it's divisive and because this is a safe space and I want you to be happy here and I want her to be happy here and I want him to be happy here. And I don't want bickering and ugliness and people going back and forth at one another because I want them to be able to come here to let go of all of that and just be in good company.
Yep.
And I tossed the ball back. And that man and I, even though we were completely opposed to one another in viewpoint, he and I had the most lovely conversation for an hour about family and about farming and about practices and about spirituality. And it was just a really nice conversation. And that's how it ended. And this is something I learned. It's called How to Diffuse a Situation. On the front lines at a women's clinic, dealing with people like, and I kid you not, Eric Rudolph. And being able to have relaxed, one-on-one, first-name basis conversations with these people, even though I was completely opposed to their viewpoint. Because I knew that their viewpoint was coming from a place of fear and brainwashing. And that it's coming from a religious ideology that I would never agree with, nor would I never understand.
Yeah, and it's like a political ideology.
It's
become a religious ideology.
Yeah.
They're closed off, and we're guilty of it too.
God!
Regardless of your position, we all get entrenched into an us versus them reality, and that's what they're banking on.
Yes,
I mean.
You got to keep us separated.
You might find the other person, especially lately, it's gone from, a political to a moral standpoint, right? But then you have the question of whose morals, right?
It's all about perspective.
And that gentleman came in and how they always like to say, well, you were dressed a certain way and, you expect people, well, he came in dressed a certain way to provoke.
Oh, yeah.
The entire uniform, if you will, was for provocation. And that's what he was looking for. And instead of provocation, he got reason.
Yeah.
And does that mean that we're okay with everything that person stands for? Absolutely not. That's not the point. The point is that we can have differing viewpoints. Anytime you have to have a checklist that any other person that you encounter in the world must meet, there's not going to be many people that meet all those things on your checklist. You're
shortchanging yourself too,
and that goes with with everything in life, with spirituality. Even you don't. Some things don't mix. We don't mix things with spirituality.
We don't mix politics, sexuality, any of that with spirituality.
No, it doesn't have anything to do with it, and we see that a lot.
We see each other as coven mates,
and that's
it.
I get the human aspect of tribe, and you want to be with people of like mind, and there's nothing wrong with that. But who are you turning away because they're missing one or two tick marks on your list? Are they heinous? Are they horrible people? Do they believe in horrible shit? Well, yeah, that's kind of a no-brainer. You don't want to be around that.
But that's about 1% of the population.
You have to be smart. Like one of the best lessons I ever got was from, and I will call him a convict because anyone that's ever worked in or been in prison knows that is a term of respect, right? You have inmates, which are run-of-the-mill dumbasses, and then you have convicts who know how the system works and know how everything works.
And they work the system.
And they work the system better than anyone. But one of my first lessons as a young corrections officer was from a convict. And I was fresh out of boot camp. I was hard charger, high and tight haircut, ready to go, jackbooted. And I didn't know shit. And I made emotional reactions to every stimuli that I had, so it was really easy for this guy to rile me up, and he said inflammatory things, or he said something that, talking about your personal life, talking about things that, your appearance, the way you speak, anything, any little chink in your armor that they could get in to get under your skin and cause an emotional reaction. Because when you're doing 5 life sentences, you don't really care about tickets. You don't really care about anything else. You have really very little entertainment other than the young, dumb officer that just got out of boot camp that thinks he has all the answers because the academy told him so. And look, we're all guilty of being triggered. I was triggered like crazy, but I'm in my 20s and, easy easy pickings for him, and he managed to do it. And then I noticed him looking at me, and he had just the slightest smile on his face, like, I got you.
Little twinkle in the eye.
I got you. I got you.
You fish.
Got you. And I saw that and was like, wait a minute. He doesn't give a shit about any of the things that he's arguing about. He's just trying to
get a
rile me up and get a reaction, an emotional response. And boy, did he. I lost my shit. and I see the smile across his face, and I'm like, this motherfucker. Mm-hmm. But I learned a valuable lesson, right? And so that applies in the world as well. You'll see, mainstream news or even non-mainstream news say triggering topics, or they do this stuff so that you will watch it and continue to watch it, and you will argue with your friends and family, and you're tuned in when their commercials are playing, and you want to buy things that support your viewpoint, which is fine. You should vote with your wallet, right? But we have to be careful that we're not being manipulated and controlled, because most of that advertising is manipulation and control. Yeah. And it is when you have one organization that owns both sides of the argument. I rest my case.
Yeah.
They're equally invested. So no matter which viewpoint you are arguing from, they win.
And if you don't believe they're equally invested, I urge you to go look up what they buy stock in on both sides of the aisle, what those companies are, who they are, and how much control those companies have of us in this country.
I mean, the emotional reaction can be so strong, on every aspect of the viewpoint, and we end up becoming tribal and disregarding anyone else if they don't meet our checklist. And that checklist is on either side, and the checklist can be on any subject other than just human interaction. Yeah. Right? So, it goes so far as, you have that preacher in Tennessee that's having public book burnings with books that he doesn't like, opinions that he doesn't like.
Pagan authors, women's rights, you name it. He's burning them. Harry Potter, for goodness sake.
And I get the issue with Harry Potter as well, and the author's own personal craziness. But Bella is just going crazy. But those book burnings, those public book burnings, what's the difference between us having a virtual book burning because we don't like what a particular author had to say, or we don't like the history of that author's horrible, and so we have a virtual book burning. Don't buy these books. Don't buy these books. Don't buy these books. What's the difference between that and this nutcase in Tennessee, doing his thing?
We don't want him doing that to you either.
What's the difference?
Yeah,
what is the difference? And we're both wrong then, right? So somebody buys the book. Okay, maybe that person is a scholar. Okay, well, I'm seeing all this stuff about him. And so do a little research on why. Yeah. Why? Like sound bites that you hear on TV, they're designed to have inflammatory topics that elicit an emotional response. Mm-hmm. And they're usually successful.
Very. And it's scary. It's scary how easy we are.
When if you take the time to research that soundbite, you'll find most often than not that they're taken completely out of context. Yeah. And they're made to imply something or, a subject or whatever that didn't happen that way. That's not how it happened. But the way the soundbite is edited, it makes you go, what the fuck? But take the time to do your own research. And they're counting on you not doing that. They're counting on you having an emotional response to a
cute commercial,
to a curated bit of stimuli that is designed to make you angry or make you frustrated or make you whatever. You're going to have an emotional response to that. It's up to the individual to make the decision on how they're going to respond.
It reminds me of some of the advertising they do for foods that are actually really deadly to you and poisonous to you, and they glean them up and sell them to your children, especially sweet, sugary cereals with lots of these different coloring elements in them that are actually deadly and cause DNA damage over time. But God, do they make that commercial just look so adorable, and the kids look so happy, and the family looks so charming, and you rush right out and buy the box. And that's the same way it is with political and scientific and religious ideology in commercials around the time of elections and things of that nature. The happy family, the loving man of Christ, and you find out when you've elected this lovely looking man into office with this beautiful family that, God, he's a monster.
Yeah.
He's a fascist. We have to be careful with perception.
I thought he was just like me.
Yeah, that's exactly what they want you to think. That
No,
he's
nothing like you.
He's Billy Bob from next door, and he's the greatest guy ever, and he's going to have your family and your heart and soul and mind when he votes. And then you go and look at his voting record, or you go and look at the legislation that he crafted and what he spends his money on and buys stocks in, and it's heinous.
But they can convince you to act against your own interests.
Yes.
With a heavily curated soundbite. And it may not even be them. It might be the people that are reporting it, and they curate those sound bites to elicit a response. So
exactly.
How do we combat this, right? And we've all seen the horrible laws being passed and just heinous shit that goes against the will of the people. And they just do whatever they want. And you feel powerless as a little person. I'm a little person. I don't have any power, really, except in my vote. And then you question if that even matters, right? There's speculation about that to create doubt in the system.
Yes.
So...
And you also vote with your wallet.
That is...
And how often we forget.
Yeah, that is one of the most powerful votes, is voting with your wallet.
So no matter which side of the political spectrum you're from... And we hear you both. Believe me, we do. And we understand where you're coming from. You need to look, when you're voting, at who is the money behind the candidate. And then think down the line, what does this mean for me and my rights when this candidate actually gets in office? Because now they're beholden to this golem they've created by taking that cash from that corporation. And they're going to be doing his bidding.
Well, it becomes so frustrating. You just want to stick your head in the sand like, I just don't do politics.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a danger too, right?
Yeah.
They're counting on that reaction as well.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't get into it. It makes me so mad. I just don't even get into it. But again, they're throwing the ball and you're having an emotional response to it.
Yeah.
And it's up to us to make that decision on everything, on every stimuli that you come across during your given day. You have decisions to make. If you have a horrible driver in front of you in Clark Summit, I know that's completely unheard of because everybody is just fantastic, fantastic, empathetic, courteous drivers in Clark Summit, Pennsylvania.
On the daily.
But how you react to that. So the person didn't look before they pulled out. They cut you off. You had to slam on brakes. You have your family in the car. They have their family in the car.
And you don't know if they're curated or not.
What decision do you make? Do you lay on the horn, give them the double social finger, and then cut them back off and create an even more dangerous situation? Or do you stop, think, look, I love my spouse. I love my mate. I love my person, my partner. I love my children. I'm not going to put them in further. This person has already demonstrated poor judgment. Am I going to escalate the situation by becoming even more aggressive with them so they know who's boss? Or am I going to back off, get the hell away from them, go down another street, just diffuse the situation by your actions?
Yes.
And we have to think like that. And look, we're both guilty of social finger driving.
Yes, oh my God.
But
it's my favorite
It's
thing.
a failing. It's a failing. And I readily admit, look, I'm human. We're all human. We all have those. I had a bad day and I just don't feel like being rational right now. Go fuck yourself. But they're counting on that, right? And that's what we do when you're presented with advertising. That's what you do when you're presented with, any kind of media, no matter what the source is. That's what we do when we have interactions with people. People dress provocatively because they want to express themselves and they'll say it has nothing to do with you. But when you go out into public and you elicit a response, I mean, there's nothing wrong with dressing and expressing yourself, but you should also be prepared for when you're outside the norm of people's reaction. And it may not be the reaction that you wanted, or maybe you did want that reaction so that you can have an argument. And, where's that end?
Exactly.
And I'm not saying everybody needs to dress like, the same in a uniform. I used to have long ass fucking hair with blonde streak tips and all kinds of, 1980s. What do you want?
And you did that just for shock value.
And I did. I completely admit that. I drove around in the Bible Belt with Born Again Pagan on the back of my car.
And clergy.
To elicit a response. So
inverted pentagram.
I completely get it, why we do those things. And it is a form of microaggression,
yes.
Because you're tired of the people that you perceive as oppressing you. In a lot of cases, the perception is true. They are oppressing you. But why are they oppressing you? Because they feel threatened because of the message they got was that you were the enemy. And so instead of looking into it more, they react with the information that they have. And
they lash out.
Maybe minimal information. Yeah. And so now we're back and forth again. Now we're having an emotional response on every side. And it's a never-ending source of entertainment for the champagne-sipping one-percenters who are engineering the entire thing.
Yes, it absolutely is. And the way that we combat this is having conversations with these people we don't exactly care for.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's been the strangest thing for both of us to describe what we do to people from outside and watch their eyes light up and go, well, I didn't know it had anything to do with agrarian cycles.
Yeah.
What the hell? I thought y'all like summoning the devil and worshiping demons and, slaughtering babies and sacrificing shit. And then they find out we're really kind of boring.
I'm very boring. Incredibly. Yeah. My Google Maps is a straight line.
Oh, my God.
And it's store, home, and once in a while, every week, I go to the grocery store.
But are they going to know this about you if you don't engage them in conversation?
No, they expect to come in and
trigger you.
And we're the stereotype, have to wear, witchy clothing and look a certain way. And we're just two old farts behind the counter laughing.
They come in and I'm all dowdy.
I mean, that's just the way we are. We are who we are,
Yeah.
And that's not an emotional response to anything other than I'm old and I don't really give a shit.
I want to be comfortable. Screw this shit.
Yeah.
High heels I used to love. Not for an 8, 10, 12-hour day. No, sir. No way, no how.
Yeah. But, I mean, just be cautious. That
Yeah.
Look, everybody does the checklist, right? But not everybody has to meet every box, or we're going to really limit the communication that we have.
Yeah.
And think about when you see someone, don't buy these books because this is a bad person. Okay, says you.
Yeah.
There are ways to research before you make a decision. It's called making an educated decision.
And then read the book. Damn.
What's it going to hurt if you read the book?
Yeah.
I read all kinds of books. I don't agree with a whole lot of them. I read them because even somebody who's completely wrong and in the meme or the soundbite, they sound like an awful person. I want to know for myself what they said themselves. I don't want to hear someone else's opinion. I'm not.
Exactly.
I'm not going to make a decision for me based on someone else's perspective. I want my perspective, and that involves not only reading the book, but looking a little deeper into like maybe the era that they were in and why did they think this way. You have to be inquisitive, especially in things of an esoteric nature. You can't accept anything on face value.
And they were anti this and anti that because they'd never been introduced to it.
Yeah.
Let's put that in perspective because I know you guys. And I know that if some of you came into these people's lives, that they would have loved you just like I do. They just never met one of you.
Yeah.
They never met somebody from your background, from your perspective. And that's what it takes in this world for us to come together, is to meet people from different perspectives at a point of respect and earnest interest in that person's background and earnest interest in that person's practices. And that's why this place here at Pickeyweedz is so open to every single practice. We don't care what background you come from. We want to serve you. We want you to feel comfortable here. We want you to see something that's of yourself, of your culture, of your practice in this store so that you know that we're interested in you. And that we really want to hear what you've got to say. And that is an open invitation.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have, it's like when you read a book and you don't have to incorporate it into your practice. You can read the book aside from your practice and go, oh, well, that was interesting. Maybe you got a little tidbit there that opened another door and oh, now I understand their viewpoint. Oh, now I see what you're saying. Okay. And that's how it goes. That's how education works. And it's really hard to do, like Mark had mentioned earlier, without a mentor.
Yes.
Without that experienced person guiding your step. But even then you have to be careful. Right, the person guiding your step may have ulterior motives too,
and they have a perception that's colored by their experiences.
So we don't ever surrender free will to anyone or anything. You always want to be true to yourself,
yes.
Right? Well, just because they said it doesn't mean it's necessarily true. It could be partly true, but it also could be distorted, and you have to keep that presence of mind.
And that harkens back to the first rule of magic for us, is know thyself. The full quote is, know thyself and you will know God. Do you not know we are gods and we are creating this world that we live in? And look at the mess it's in. Because we can't look at somebody else with a difference of opinion and see them as human. It's human nature. We tend to categorize them as monsters or animals, if they have a different perspective. When all it takes to understand where they're coming from is to throw that ball softly into their court and see how they respond.
Yep.
And then actually listen without a leaning towards what am I going to say next.
Oh, yeah, the listen to respond thing.
Yeah,
that drives me nuts.
Don't do that. You're not going to learn anything that way.
You see their eyes glaze over while you're trying to have a conversation,
yes.
And they're not, like you could even put some dumb shit in and they'll be like,
yeah.
You're not even listening. You've already made up your mind, 3 syllables into the statement and you're just ready to hit that, throw the ball back hard.
And see, I think with me, I'm just such a student of freaking human nature that I'm so intrigued by what they're going to say.
Oh, yeah. I have learned so much from the people that walk through that door. And even the people that are new, they have a different perspective.
They do.
And it makes me pause and go, huh. That's right. Yeah. I remember those days when but that's an even different perspective than I had. And how do you address that? You know? And so then we have to do some research and think about those things. It's not an ego trip. It's we're learning right along with you all, know, and I think that forever being the student is the best perspective to have.
It is.
I'm not an expert in anything, never have, never will be. I know a couple things, a little bit, but that doesn't mean that when presented with new information, that's sound information that I've found to be true, intrinsically true, that I can't change those viewpoints.
Exactly.
We're not the same people we were, 2 days ago, much less the same people we were 20 years ago.
God, I was heinous 20 years ago, and that's why I can't judge anybody. I have done so many things in my past that I don't even care if they come to light now because I'm a completely different person. I'm not her anymore.
Well, we're always evolving.
Yeah.
We are in a state of constant evolution, and it's really, some things are beyond your control, but a lot of things are within your control, and you have to make decisions on how you're going to respond. That's what this all comes down to. And those decisions sometimes are split second, maybe knee jerk. Right. But by taking the time to research some things and taking the time to look into some things for yourself and not taking someone's statement as fact, just on face value, you owe it to yourself to do that. And people are like, I don't have time to do that. I'm like, okay, well, that's a decision you've made.
Then at least do this. And from the minute that they've triggered you, instead of responding immediately, count back. 3 1,000, 2 1,000, 1 1,000. Give yourself a second to process and then realize that they're trying to manipulate you and go, oh, you little bastards, you're trying to manipulate me. I see what you're doing.
And you see the convict with a smile on his face. Gotcha.
Yeah, and then respond in kind. So the guy that says to you, why do you wear Christmas hair all the time? Or why do you go out looking like you're going to Halloween? And you just go, does it bother you? And then they go, well, yeah. Well, Thanks for your opinion. Yeah. I did that to a lady in the old store.
I don't like your music. Your music is not conducive to a good shopping experience.
And that's exactly what she said. And I said, thank you for your opinion.
Hooray for you.
And I kept on playing the music.
Yeah.
And that's how you diffuse people. That's how you diffuse a situation. If they see you don't care, it annoys them a whole hell of a lot more than it does you.
Yeah. Because they've lost, and I think one of the issues is we've lost a lot of empathy with the electronic world.
Yeah, we have.
You know, people never spoke face to face in the 70s and 80s the way they talk to each other online.
Yeah.
You know,
you'd have got punched in the face. Oh my God.
What we call them, keyboard warriors.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you have people that are so used to being a keyboard warrior that they forget in public. You know,
I'm just looking at them with one eye up.
You can catch one.
Like you.
I'm going to make an emotional
me.
decision. Well, knock you the fuck out. You know, I have thought about it, researched it, and bam.
Yeah, this person you see before you these days is much changed. I used to be rather violent. Okay.
You made a lot of emotional decisions.
I did.
So did I.
I had police friends of mine come to me and say, you got to stop. We can't keep you out of jail any longer.
And we laugh about that now, but I mean, we hear people going through similar situations that we went through, you know, in the past. And hindsight's 20/20, as they say.
Yes, oh my God.
And
terrible sight.
It's easy for us to say, well, no, you need to do this, this, and this. Well, that's really hard to hear when you're in the midst of it, right?
Of the drama.
When you're inundated with it, you're drowning in it, and like there's no reprieve. But you always have to remember that you are the one that is in control.
Yes. And the immortal words of Rage Against the Machine, take your power back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take it back.
It's hard. It's easier than it sounds. Or it's easier than it sounds.
It's harder than it
I'm left-handed. I get shit backwards all the fucking time. There.
It's easier than it sounds.
You know what the hell I mean. But,
once you learn the mindset that you need to have, it becomes easy. The reaction becomes normal.
Yeah.
And you're just looking at him and you raise one eyebrow and go, oh, aren't you cute? Bless your heart.
And, you know, on the larger scale, we're seeing, you know, these politicians on any side of the aisle.
Fisticuffs, dude.
Doing things that, and trying to pass laws that impact people's lives in a negative way.
Yeah.
And they think, from their perspective, that they're really doing the right thing and you're wrong. And no, you're oppressing people. You're oppressing groups of people. You're oppressing all kinds of people. You're a horrible person. And, you know, where does it end? How do we... The best thing to do is to run for office. And I'm seeing the younger generation do that. And that's...
I'm excited.
Representation. Like, we all need representation.
Yes.
And that's how the Greeks did it. That's how the Romans did it. They had people from differing viewpoints. And did it come to blows sometimes? Yeah,
but you didn't usually see senators back then in the Roman period. Like, they would cut off ears and stuff. But they were brilliant. They had brilliant minds. These people act and speak and carry themselves like imbeciles. And I'm
on every party.
Yeah,
you know?
I'm ashamed.
And then you have the few people that are trying to do the right thing and trying to have some kind of consensus, but they're vastly outnumbered by the shrieking voices of stupidity.
Yeah.
And you know, here we are as the little people feeling completely unrepresented and a lot of us feeling, quite frankly, oppressed. And so that affects our decision making.
Yeah. You can't let them do that to you.
You get mad and angry.
Take your power back.
You see somebody in a red hat and you lose your shit because, well, it's no longer a political thing, right? Now it's a morality thing. And then you see somebody from the other side, see somebody, you know, dressed like friends of ours and different colored hair or piercings or whatever, and they automatically make judgments on appearance, which isn't right either.
No.
You know, what was it? How did Paul Simon say the words of the prophets are
written on the subway walls and the tenement halls.
The tenement halls, right? Some of the best conversations I've ever had are from people who did not look like me, people that did not dress like me, people that did not, I've had some of the best philosophical conversations with bikers.
Me too.
Or
oh my God,
people in the prison system.
Brilliant.
There's
a lot of brilliant people in prison. I'm not even kidding you.
Homeless people. I've just had horrible luck. or they made bad decisions, or maybe just life just happened and there's nothing that was beyond their control.
Yeah.
But some of the most wise things that I've ever heard have been from people that, a lot of people wouldn't even talk to or look at.
They'd be afraid to approach on the street, and they're just beautiful people.
But I've learned that listen to everybody. You don't have to agree with them. You don't. You're entitled to your own, opinion, but just make sure that opinion is rooted as much as possible in fact, in actuality.
Yeah. And not fear or religion or sexuality or any of that stuff. You need to make sure it's rooted in fact.
And we talk about rights, and I've had this conversation many times that, we have a lot of differing viewpoints that come through the door. And we have Christian fundamentalists that come in, but the ones that I've encountered thus far have been
lovely,
very
people.
Polite and very decent, and they're just curious. Mm-hmm. They've heard, and here is an example of someone taking it upon themselves to find out the actuality of a statement.
Yeah.
Oh, you're not like that? No, not like that. That's Hollywood. That's not how this works.
They've come to see if there's anything to fear here.
And
because their family members are coming here and they want to know if they're getting indoctrinated.
Yeah, yeah.
We had one customer bring her mother in who thought she was joining a cult. And she came and she had an experience here at a ceremony. And she said she felt closer to God here than she had felt in many, many years.
That's beautiful.
And it led her back to church, which I think is beautiful.
Absolutely.
She took back up her spirituality, something that was kind of dying in her. And I thought, that's what we're here for.
When we realize we can all coexist without forcing everyone to agree with our viewpoint on every aspect.
Yeah.
It's very rare that you're going to find a large group of people that agrees with everything you stand for and believe.
You're going to have something that irritates you about somebody. If there's 5 people in the room, there's going to be something about one of them that just irritates you.
And as Mark has said previously, groups that do that are destined to implode.
Yes, they are.
Because you have to be able to have empathy. You have to have a certain level of understanding.
And you have to have discipline.
Yeah. That not everyone's going to meet your checklist.
Yeah.
Do they meet the important things, or can you gain something from listening to that person that you just, I don't agree with anything they do, but listen and understand why they got to that perspective, and you can probably find the source of manipulation.
Yes.
And look inward at yourself and ensure that you're not having another source of manipulation, because let me tell you, the same puppet masters are running both.
Yes.
And they're cashing in on both and counting on all of us to have emotional responses to the stimuli that they provide.
It always amazes me when I see protest and counter-protest that I can see that not so subtle, and everybody thinks it is, not so subtle manipulation in both sides of the crowd. I can see the puppet master's hand up the asses of those people moving those mouths.
Absolutely.
And I think about it and think, I hear your talking point. I know where that talking point came from. I hear your talking point. I know exactly where that talking point came from. Let me remind you that they want us to forget that we're all brothers and sisters and that we're all human. We're all the same species. We're all sharing the same planet, and they want you to see them as other and else and
less than human
and less than you. And so the oldest trick in the book is to take somebody who's oppressed and make them feel special.
Yeah. Yeah.
For a second, so they can work you like a marionette.
Yep.
Careful
Absolutely.
that you see this coming. And how does this tie into practice? I know this is a, sort of a pagan podcast. How does this tie into practice? Man, does it tie into practice. When you're summoning something, expectations have to go out the window. And it has to come down to how you conduct yourself and how you comport yourself and compose yourself in ritual. It is all about your will when that thing comes through. And if its will overwhelms you, you're done. And it's one or two things. You can really get hurt in the physical, or you can really get hurt in the mental and end up in a mental ward and end up on all kinds of drugs. So you have to understand that this is what the great work is all about. Learning to temper your reactions, learning to still your will, and learning to open your mind to possibility. And possibility, in ritual, good Lord, possibility. It's a huge, huge opening.
Well, and I see a lot of failing too, that people are approaching the esoteric as a means of replacement for therapy.
Yeah, and it's not the place to do it.
And it's not. And one of the first rules of magic is what? Know thyself.
Know
right?
thyself, and thou shalt know God.
But you have to have your own house in order.
Yeah.
In most of the books that I've read, especially those written by some fairly well-known esoteric authors, they all say the same thing.
Yes.
Right. You have to get your own house in order.
You have to do the inner work first.
And you can't accomplish anything. This isn't you jump in and things happen like in a episode of Sabrina. It doesn't work that way.
No.
You can't go in it with mental issues that you need to address. Mental issues that should be taken to a therapist. Therapy is a good thing.
Yeah.
And it's very helpful to have someone to talk to that gets you. And if you don't have a therapist that's listening and providing avenues for you to address those things and to help you live a better, more fulfilled life, then that needs to be your first priority, because magic is not therapy. Magic is magic. It's not intended as a self-help. Okay. And you can do sound healings and you can do those things to help calm the mind. And those are great. Those are awesome. But when it comes to actual work, practice, especially on the hermetic side or the esoteric side, you really need to get your house in order, because some of the entities that you may come across, they're not all happy and shiny. Some of them really want to hurt you. It's just what they are.
Yeah.
It's not a human emotional response. This is it is. It's not one way or the other.
Yeah.
And so any aspect that they can prey on, think about it as the new corrections officer fresh out of boot camp and the seasoned lifer was just having one on for their own entertainment. Well, there's spirits that do that too.
Yeah, it's a nasty sludge being spirit. Yeah.
Absolutely. So any kind of weakness or chink in your armor, they will expose.
Yes.
Yeah, people wonder why I'm not quick to anger. Well, look, if it can be said, it's been said to me.
My God.
Anything about your appearance,
Absolutely.
Anything about the way you look, the way you speak, the way you walk,
what you believe.
any little chink in the armor that they can find to elicit an emotional response out of you is a win.
I've been poked at and prodded and called every name in the book. Yeah.
And my fellow corrections officers out there, or my fellow, convicts, inmates that have been in the inside, you know what I'm talking about. People are saying, they're scared of prison because of the physical violence. It's the emotional that is far more to fear. And not only the fact that you're locked in there with those people, but they've had nothing but years to come up with the best ways to elicit a response out of you.
Oh, yeah.
And you're fresh from the world, not used to that environment.
And you're scared.
Easy pickings. And we have to kind of develop that armor, where I'm not going to be triggered by what you say or what you do.
I know who I am, and I know what my worth is.
I'm going to listen to what you have to say, and then I'm going to choose my response.
Yeah.
And choose that response from a place not of emotion. Because emotional response is why so many people are in prison to begin with.
Yes.
They made an emotional decision. The heat of the moment, they call it in boot camp.
It could be any one of us in there.
Crimes of passion.
Yes.
That's where most people are locked up.
And then people are so immediate to judge a person who's been in prison for for one of those issues. And it could have so easily been you had somebody said something ugly to your kid or your wife or your...
Absolutely. I had an inmate tell me that. Only difference between me and you is you didn't get caught. I said, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
I will not deny that. You're absolutely right.
Yep.
We're all crazy when we're young.
We are all.
Some of us are crazy when we're old.
Yeah, we're all what time and circumstance have made us.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think one of the adages that I go at life, and people ask me, "How the hell do you do this? How do you talk to that person without choking them?" You can learn something even from a fool.
Yeah.
It's an adage that I live by. And there may be a good reason that person is a fool.
And it's
called manipulation.
You're also not entrenched in converting that person to your point of view.
No, I don't care if they believe or not. I don't care if they join me or not, because it doesn't. And this is a thing with other religions and world religions that I find kind of funny. They're told to go out and they're told to witness to people and bring them into the fold. Well, you know what that says to me? It belies that you're insecure and you need numbers of other people alongside of you for you to keep feeling secure in your beliefs. You need those people to prop up your belief.
Yep.
I don't need you.
No.
Yeah. I don't need you.
In a true, we're talking about Christianity, a true follower of Christ doesn't need that either.
Yeah.
They have their faith,
Absolutely.
Look at the wondrous things. Like I'm reading Chris Bellardi's book right now, The Red Church, and talking about faith as the foundation of everything. Look, here's a perfect example of that. I don't have to incorporate something just because I read it. I'm reading it to learn more about, Brockerai and Hexerai, and Pennsylvania Dutch and powwow. I'm interested because my family was Pennsylvania Dutch.
His grandmother, good night,
but
amazing.
It's out of print, I believe. I don't know if maybe it's
I think it's out of print.
It might be back in print. Christopher will correct us on that, I'm sure. But excellent book. Mark Stavish wrote the foreword on it. Just truly a treasure trove of information that every time I turn the page, I'm learning some new thing. Does it mean I'm going to all of a sudden have faith in the Christian religion? No, because I have my belief system that's rooted in my ancestry and rooted in paganism, but that's my personal belief. And everyone has their own personal belief system. Is it subject to change? Yes, absolutely.
It's personal.
In some, even with the pantheon that you follow, that's subject to change.
Yes. Mine's grown a lot.
The advantage of being pagan is we have like a painter's palette of deities, right? Especially being an American mutt where I have, so many different lineage.
Yes. Oh my God, it's terrible. I know they're all confused when I call them like.
And you don't even have to do that.
How the hell do you know these
people? It doesn't even have to be your lineage. Maybe you're really interested in the culture of another land that had nothing to do with your ancestry.
Because we all come from one point in history.
We're
all come from one point in history.
So you want to learn about that. But the key is to find an accurate source for that information, and that is usually, someone who is credible. And how do you find out if they're credible? Well, you speak with them and you look into them and you talk to them. And then, sometimes it doesn't take very long for you to figure out whether this person is legitimate or not. You know? But that being said, we welcome everybody. And I've said to other people that, just because we have a Christian customer, or we have a Buddhist customer, or we have a Taoist customer.
And we have all of those.
And you name it, across the spectrum of spirituality, their personal spirituality and their rights to practice how they see fit is very important to me. I will fight side by side beside anyone, whether they're Christian, whether they're Buddhist, whether they're pagan, it doesn't matter.
For their rights.
You have a right to believe and practice, so long as it doesn't hurt anyone else. I guess that's the closest to harm you none I get.
Yeah.
So long as it's not impacting someone else's life or hurting someone else's life, I will defend your rights right shoulder to shoulder with you. And I think that we all should be like that. We don't have to agree. I do agree that you have that right to practice.
Yes.
The caveat being the minute it impacts an innocent person or the minute it impacts other people in a negative manner, that's where I draw the line.
This is no longer a free speech issue when that happens.
Yeah.
But we have to be careful because free speech is a slippery slope, and it's like the book bannings. Yeah. You are literally trying to abridge someone's free speech when you're banning their books and when you're burning their books.
Or posting memes. Don't buy these books.
Yeah.
That is a virtual book burning.
Yeah, it is. And so you need to think about what a slippery slope that is, because they've come at you. Think about it. They've come at you and people that you love and authors and speakers that you really adore, and they've done this to them, and they've tried to cancel them, and they've tried to destroy their lives. And if you take the same tact and swing way left and go after them, you are no different than the very oppressors that we seek to beat. The very oppressors that we seek to free ourselves from.
You become your enemy.
Yeah.
You become your enemy. You become the very thing that you were trying to stand against.
Please love yourself more than that, and love your brothers and sisters more than that, and respect. And if it's not hurting anyone, and it's just an opinion, and it's not being forced down your throat in a court of law, or in a legislative piece of legislation, rather, then it's free speech. And don't abridge that. You don't have to listen to it, and you don't have to agree with it, and you can do what the Greeks did and sit down and debate that person.
And remember who's swinging the pendulum.
Yeah.
And they swing it all the way to the left and all the way to the right. It's very rarely in the middle, because that's where they get the best reaction.
Yes. And remember, the best tactic is diffuse first. Diffuse the anger first, and then have a conversation. You'll be amazed how quickly that person will see you as human.
Yeah.
And then now that's the doorway into opening their eyes and opening their hearts and opening their minds. And that happens so many more times than I can even count over the course of my lifetime in some of the jobs I've had to work. It's amazing. It's very powerful. It's extremely powerful. If they think you're willing to listen, 9 times out of 10, unless it's a vile creature that's just doing it to hurt somebody, if they think you're willing to listen, they're willing to listen to you. Open that door.
Yep. And, keep an eye out for the smile across their face. Like, got you.
Sometimes I love that smile, though.
Got you.
Because that's, it's like, I see you. Yeah. I see you, you little shit. You were just trying to find out. But you could have just asked me directly.
We love everybody here.
Yeah.
And even, the people, I can't say we love everyone.
No.
We accept everyone.
Yeah.
How about that? Or most people. The caveat being that if you are someone that is trying to hurt someone.
I don't think we've had anybody truly heinous.
No.
I think the kids were just being kids and being little assholes.
Oh, the ones that
used to break the door and yell, God hates gay people.
Oh, yeah. Good God.
They were just being little assholes. But I
I
don't think we've had anybody truly vile.
And turned out one of them's brother was gay.
Yeah.
His father was like, what the hell is wrong
oh,
with
my
him?
God. Poor man.
This was at the old store when they were kind of doing like a ding-dong-ditch game of opening store doors and yelling in them, or just causing disturbance, being typical kids.
Yeah.
But they're saying some horrible things.
Yes, they were, to our customers who are our people, and we love them, and we're very freaking protective,
and it
just
wasn't
in case
just
you wanted to
us.
know.
They were doing it to every store, or a lot of stores. No, you're not every store, but a lot of stores up and down the Clark Summit shopping district. You know, and it was getting to be a real problem. They were riding their bikes, park their bikes, open the door, scream some offensive bullshit to elicit a response, and laugh and run away, and it's just little kid stuff. But I see adults do that all the time.
I see little adults act like little kids.
They want to elicit a response and then laugh and I got them off their square. What does that accomplish?
Picking on young girls that are dressed goth. That makes me very, very angry, but that's not the response you need to have with them. The response you need to have with them is, why does it bother you?
Yeah, they don't know what to do. They start to short circuit when you does it bother you? How does this affect your life?
Yes.
I'm expressing myself.
Yeah.
And everyone has a right to express themselves, but we also have to remember that it will elicit a response, because they call it counterculture.
Yeah.
Right. And I was a big,
me too, boo.
My teens and 20s, I was Sex Pistols, Misfits,
Susie and the Banshees, the
Ramones.
Yes.
Very much.
Yeah.
That was like, a rebellious.
I was anything but what the others were.
Complete rebellion against societal norms, but I was angry.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes I got some emotional response back.
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes you had to literally physically fight for
But those were the days.
Yeah.
Before YouTube and TikTok and things like that.
No, and cameras on every cell phone. Oh my God, I'm so glad there were no cameras on every cell phone when I was coming up.
I've been to some mosh pits in Detroit that were like, whew.
But that's a good outlet. I think we need more mosh pits. I really do. I think we do. I think people need to get in there and slug it out and get it out of their system, so they stop harming innocent people.
Yeah.
But
anyway, if you've stuck around this long, thank you guys. I think we just really wanted to get some of this out there and maybe get some people thinking a little bit before you get triggered.
Yeah. Don't be triggered. They know you're going to be triggered. Don't give them that.
Yeah, watch it.
That's their pleasure, not yours.
Remember who's swinging the pendulum and watch for that smile on their face.
Yes. Have mercy.
Love y'all.
Love you. Love under will. So we hope you enjoyed this episode of In the Weeds, and we hope you didn't have to pick too much pucker brush off your cloak after visiting with us here. If you liked the episode, please follow, subscribe, and share. And if you're really kind, leave a positive review. Be sure to tune in next week as we publish a new episode weekly. If you're in the area, stop by the store and see us. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great day.